I accidentally texted the alien woman, "Come to my room." She arrived 5 minutes later. Evan Mercer stared at the glowing screen in front of him and rubbed his eyes. The lights of the station never dimmed, and after 14 hours of maintenance checks, his brain felt just as artificial as the metal walls around him. The diplomatic station Axiom Gate floated quietly between 3 star systems, home to dozens of alien species and a few thousand humans who tried very hard not to cause trouble. Evan had failed at that goal more times than he liked to admit. He leaned back in his chair inside his small room, tools scattered across the desk. A warning icon blinked on his wrist console, showing a system request still marked as pending. He sighed. The station's translation software had been updated again, and nothing worked the way it used to. "Just cancel," Evan muttered. He tapped the message field, half asleep, barely reading the predictive text that appeared. The interface translated emotional intent as much as words, something the alien designers believed was more honest. Humans had voted against it. Humans had lost. Evan typed 2 short words and hit send without checking. The moment the message disappeared, the console froze. Then unfroze, then helpfully displayed the translated version of what he had just sent. "Come to my room." Evan's heart stopped. "No, no, no, no," he whispered, sitting upright. The message header showed the recipient, Ambassador Cathrix of the Thalvan Accord. Evan felt cold all over. Cathrix was not just any alien. She was one of the senior diplomatic envoys on the station, a species known for rigid honor codes and literal interpretation. The Thalvan did not joke. They did not exaggerate. And they absolutely did not send casual messages. Evan scrambled to send a correction, but the console locked again, displaying a polite notice, "Message delivered. Response pending." He stared at the door. Nothing happened. Maybe she would ignore it. Maybe she would assume it was a system error. Maybe the door chimed. Evan jumped so hard he knocked his chair over. The chime came again, calm and patient. 5 minutes. Exactly 5 minutes. Evan swallowed and stood, smoothing his wrinkled uniform like that might somehow fix everything. His mind raced through station regulations, interspecies laws, and the many ways humans had embarrassed themselves since joining the coalition. He opened the door. Ambassador Cathrix stood in the corridor, taller than him by nearly a head. Her skin shimmered faintly, shifting colors like polished stone underwater. Her eyes, 3 of them, focused on Evan at once. She wore formal diplomatic armor, not weapons, but still intimidating in its sharp, ceremonial design. Behind her, the corridor was empty, but Evan knew Thalvan security never stayed far away. "You summoned me," Cathrix said. Her voice was calm, precise, and carried no emotion Evan could recognize. Evan's mouth opened. No sound came out. I didn't," he finally managed. "I mean, I did, but not like that. It was an accident, a mistake." Cathrix tilted her head slightly. "Clarify." Evan stepped aside, letting her enter because refusing would probably be worse. She crossed the threshold with measured steps, scanning the room as if cataloging every detail. Tools, loose cables, a half-finished ration bar on the desk. "This space is not prepared for a formal summons," she observed. I know, I'm really sorry," Evan said quickly. The translator, it auto-filled. Humans use phrases like that casually. "I didn't mean anything serious." Cathrix turned to face him fully. "There is no casual summoning in Thalvan culture," she said. "To request private presence implies urgency, conflict, or revelation." Evan felt like he might pass out. "I was just canceling a maintenance request," he said. "I promise, no challenge, no emergency." "Definitely no revelation." She studied him in silence, the seconds stretched. "You sent the message intentionally," Cathrix said. "I sent a message," Evan replied. "The words were wrong." "That is contradictory." Evan let out a nervous laugh before he could stop himself. Cathrix stiffened slightly, clearly unsettled by the sound. "Sorry," he said again. "That's also a human thing." Cathrix did not respond right away. Instead, she activated a small device on her wrist, recording data. Evan suspected this entire disaster was already being logged for later review. "Explain human communication," she said. Evan blinked. "All of it?" "Begin with this error." Evan took a breath. "Humans don't always mean exactly what we say. Sometimes words are habits. Sometimes they're emotional shortcuts. Sometimes we say things without thinking." "That is inefficient," Cathrix said. "Yes," Evan agreed, "but we're used to it." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Your species relies on ambiguity." We survive it, Evan said, most of the time. That answer seemed to interest her. She lowered her device. On my world, unclear speech caused extinction events. Evan stared. That's intense. Accurate, she replied. The silence returned, heavier now. Evan realized this wasn't just about him anymore. This was cultural. Political, dangerous. If this summons is reported, Cathrix continued, it may be interpreted as an intentional breach of protocol. Evan's stomach dropped. What happens then? Investigation, review, possible sanctions against your species. All because of 2 words. Evan rubbed his face. I really messed up. Yes, Cathrix said, yet you do not attempt deception. Evan looked up. Should I be? No, it is unusual. She paced slowly, movements smooth and controlled. Most species conceal error. You admitted fault immediately. Well, yeah, Evan said. It's pretty obvious when you mess up this badly. Cathrix stopped in front of him. Human history shows repeated survival after error. That's one way to put it. Wars fought due to misunderstanding, she said. Yet your species persists. Barely, Evan said, but we learn eventually. Cathrix considered this. You create chaos, she said, and then adapt to it. Evan shrugged weakly. That's kind of our thing. Another pause. I will report this incident, Cathrix said. Evan winced. Am I about to be arrested? No, she replied, but you may be summoned again. Evan sighed. This time on purpose. Her mouth did something that might have been amusement. Possibly. She turned toward the door, then stopped. Engineer Mercer. Yes. Do not send further messages. Evan nodded vigorously. Absolutely. Never again. Cathrix exited the room, the door sliding shut behind her with a soft hiss. Evan stood there, staring at the closed door, heart pounding. After a long moment, he collapsed back into his chair. This station is going to kill me, he muttered. His console lit up again. Official notice. Human representative required for council review. Evan groaned. Outside his room, far down the corridor, Ambassador Cathrix walked calmly, already replaying the encounter in her mind. Humans were reckless. Their words were dangerous. And yet, something about the engineer's honesty troubled her assumptions. A species that survived its own mistakes might be more powerful than one that never allowed them. And the council would soon decide what that meant. Evan Mercer did not sleep that night. He lay on his narrow bunk, staring at the ceiling panels while the station hummed softly around him. Every sound felt louder than normal. Every passing minute brought him closer to whatever decision the Coalition Council would make. He had faced dangerous machines, radiation leaks, and hull breaches before, but none of those felt as frightening as being judged by beings who saw language as law. When the station lights shifted to morning cycle brightness, his console chimed. Official summons confirmed. Attend council chamber. Do not be late. Evan sat up and rubbed his face. As if I could forget, he muttered. He dressed slowly, choosing his cleanest uniform, even though he knew appearances meant little to most alien species. Still, it mattered to him. Humans had learned long ago that when you were outmatched in power, presentation could still buy you a moment of respect. The walk to the council chamber felt longer than usual. The corridors were wide and curved, designed to fit bodies of many shapes and sizes. Evan passed creatures that floated, clicked, glowed, or walked on too many legs. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with caution. Humans were still new here, still being measured. The chamber doors opened silently as Evan approached. Inside, the space was vast and open, with raised platforms arranged in a circle. Each platform held a representative species. At the center stood a single empty space, for him. Evan swallowed and stepped forward. The doors closed behind him. A low sound echoed through the chamber, signaling the beginning of the session. Evan felt suddenly very small. Ambassador Cathrix stood on her platform, armor gleaming softly. Her eyes rested on Evan, unreadable. A tall, insect-like being spoke first, its voice translated into smooth English. Human engineer Evan Mercer, you are present due to a private summons sent to a coalition ambassador. Explain. Evan took a breath. His hands trembled, but he did not hide them. I made a mistake, he said. I sent words I did not mean. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Another voice spoke, deep and resonant. Words are meaning. Yes, Evan said, but for humans, words are also habit. Several delegates shifted at that. You claim your message had no intent? Asked a crystalline being whose body refracted the chamber lights. It had intent, Evan said carefully. Just not the intent those words usually carry. Silence followed. Cathrix stepped forward slightly. He speaks truthfully, she said. I questioned him privately. All attention turned to her. The human admitted error immediately, she continued. He did not attempt to redefine the message after I arrived. He did not deny responsibility. That is expected, a delegate replied. No, Catherix said, it is not. Many species hide error until forced to confess. Evan glanced at her, surprised. The insect-like delegate clicked its mandibles. Ambassador, the concern is not honesty, it is instability. Human communication appears unpredictable. That is accurate, Catherix said. And yet humans endure. The chamber grew quieter. Evan felt a strange calm settle over him. He realized he could not control the outcome, only the truth of his words. When humans joined the coalition, Evan said, we didn't bring the strongest ships or the best weapons. What we brought was experience living with mistakes. Several eyes turned back to him. Our history is full of misunderstandings, he continued. Bad ones, deadly ones, but we survived because we learned fast, we adapt. When something goes wrong, we don't freeze, we respond. Your errors cost lives, one delegate said. Yes, Evan replied. So do yours. The difference is we expect failure, we plan for it. That caused visible reactions. Some delegates leaned toward one another. Others remained rigid. Catherix raised a hand. After this incident, she said, I reviewed human records. Their species has survived planetary collapse, internal conflict, and technological disasters caused by poor communication. She paused. They did not survive because they were precise, she said. They survived because they were flexible. The chamber was completely silent now. Evan felt his heart pounding, but he stood straight. If you decide humans are too dangerous to remain, he said, I'll accept that, but don't mistake our chaos for carelessness. We care deeply. That's why we keep trying to fix what we break. A long pause followed. Then the crystalline delegate spoke again. Human engineer, do you believe your species can serve the coalition safely? Evan thought for a moment. Not perfectly, he said, but honestly. And when we fail, we'll tell you right away. Catherix inclined her head slightly. The insect-like delegate made a series of clicks, then spoke. The council has reached a decision. Evan held his breath. Human membership will continue, the delegate said. However, adjustments will be made. Evan exhaled shakily. Due to demonstrated adaptability, the delegate continued, humans will be assigned a new role. Catherix looked directly at Evan. You will serve as intermediaries, she said. Where rigid logic fails, your kind will intervene. Evan blinked. You want us in the middle? Yes, Catherix said. Your communication is flawed. That makes you uniquely capable of navigating flawed situations. The council signaled agreement. Engineer Mercer, the insect-like delegate said, you will assist in developing new protocols for human-led mediation. Evan nodded slowly. I'll do my best. That is sufficient, the delegate replied. The chamber lights dimmed slightly. The session ended. As the delegates departed, Catherix approached Evan. You altered the outcome, she said. I just told the truth, Evan replied. That is rare, she said, and effective. They walked together toward the exit. You frightened many of us, Catherix added, with two simple words. Evan smiled weakly. Yeah, I'll be more careful. She paused at the door. Do not be too careful. He looked at her, confused. If humans become precise like us, she said, you will lose what makes you valuable. She left without another word. Back in his room later that day, Evan sat at his desk and stared at his console. A message prompt blinked patiently, waiting for input. He opened the translation settings. Auto-predictive phrases disabled. He typed slowly, deliberately. Meeting request for mediation planning. Formal context, no urgency. He read it 3 times before sending. This time when the message left the screen, nothing went wrong. Evan leaned back and laughed softly. Humanity had not been expelled. It had been trusted, not despite its flaws, but because of them. And somewhere in the vast, careful coalition, beings began to understand that surviving chaos might be its own kind of strength. Evan Mercer thought the worst was over. He was wrong. The new role for humanity spread across the station faster than any official announcement. Humans were now intermediaries. A word that sounded calm, but in reality meant they were called whenever something was already going badly. Evan learned this on the 3rd day after the council session, when his console chimed before he had even finished his morning drink. Immediate mediation required. Sector D. Evan sighed and stood up. Of course, he said to no one. As he walked through the corridors, he noticed the stairs had changed. Before, aliens looked at humans with curiosity or doubt. Now there was something else mixed in: expectation. Unease, hope. Sector D was loud long before he reached it. Raised voices, sharp sounds, and the hum of defensive energy fields filled the air. Evan slowed his steps and took a deep breath. When he entered the chamber, he saw the problem immediately. Two alien delegations faced each other across a wide table. One species was tall and narrow, their skin pale and smooth, eyes dark and unblinking. The other was short and heavy, covered in thick plates that clicked softly when they moved. Between them, the air shimmered with tension. Security units stood at a distance, ready but holding back. An assistant spotted Evan and hurried over. "They cannot agree on the wording of the trade agreement," the assistant whispered. "Each side believes the other is preparing betrayal." Evan nodded. "What word?" The assistant hesitated. "Ownership." Evan closed his eyes for a moment. He stepped forward, raising his hands slowly so both sides could see them. "Okay," he said calmly. "Let's pause." "No one is attacking anyone, we're just talking," the tall species spoke first. "Their language implies permanent control," the plated species answered immediately. "Their language implies temporary deception," Evan rubbed his forehead. "Right. So you're both afraid of the same thing." They stopped arguing and looked at him. "You both think the other side is trying to trap you with words," Evan said. "That means neither of you actually wants control, you just want safety." Silence followed. "That interpretation is inaccurate," the tall delegate said. Evan shrugged. "Then explain it to me like I'm wrong, slowly." They did. For nearly an hour, Evan listened. He asked simple questions. He repeated statements back in different words. Sometimes he got it wrong on purpose just to see their reactions. Little by little, the tension eased. Finally, Evan tapped the table. "So what if we don't use your word or theirs?" Both sides leaned forward. "We use a human word," Evan said. "Shared responsibility, it's messy. It's not perfect, but it means no one fully owns anything and everyone has to stay involved." The delegates exchanged looks. "It is unclear," one said. "Exactly," Evan replied, "which means no one can twist it without everyone noticing." After a long pause, both sides agreed. As Evan left Sector D, his console chimed again. Mediation request. Sector A, then another. Sector F, Sector B. Evan stopped walking and laughed quietly. "Welcome to the job," he muttered. Over the next few weeks, humans were everywhere. Not because they were powerful, but because they were comfortable in confusion. They explained things badly on purpose to see what broke. They told jokes that made no sense just to watch reactions. They admitted ignorance without shame. And somehow it worked. Evan found himself speaking less and listening more. He learned that most conflicts were not about resources or territory, but fear of being misunderstood. Humans had lived with that fear forever. One evening, Evan was called to a private meeting room. Ambassador Cathrix was already there. "You are becoming busy," she said. "That's one word for it," Evan replied. She studied him carefully. "Some delegates believe humans are manipulating outcomes." Evan smiled tiredly. "We barely understand them ourselves." "That may be your advantage," she said. She paused, then added, "There is another matter." Her tone made Evan straighten. "Go on." "A coalition fringe species has refused mediation," Cathrix said. "They believe misunderstanding is weakness." Evan frowned. "And they're armed." "Yes, and you want a human to talk to them," Evan guessed. "I want you," Cathrix said. The journey to the outer station took hours. The species waiting there was aggressive, territorial, and proud of its strict logic systems. They believed emotion clouded truth. Humans represented everything they despised. When Evan entered their chamber, weapons hummed softly in the walls. "You speak for the chaotic species," their leader said. "I speak as myself," Evan replied. "You will fail," the leader said. "You cannot even define your intent." Evan nodded. "You're right." That caused hesitation. "I don't always know what I mean until I say it," Evan continued. "But I always know when something feels wrong." The leader tilted its head. "Explain." Evan spread his hands. "Your demands leave no room for error. That means when something breaks, and it will, you'll respond with force. Humans learned long ago that force doesn't fix misunderstanding." "You are weak," the leader said. "Yeah," Evan agreed, "and we're still here." The room fell silent. Evan leaned forward. "You don't have to join us, but if you ever miscalculate, if your perfect system cracks, remember this, humans will talk to you even then." He turned and walked out. 2 days later, the species requested mediation. When Evan returned to the main station, he found a message waiting. From Coalition Council. And in that confusion, it had found a place that no one else could fill. Evan Mercer finally felt tired in a way that sleep could not fix. Weeks had passed since humans became the official intermediaries of the Coalition, and the station no longer felt like a quiet place of research and diplomacy. It felt like a crossroads of problems. Every corridor carried voices raised in confusion. Every chamber held species who believed their logic was perfect and everyone else was wrong. Humans moved through it all like they always had, improvising. Evan stood in a wide observation hall, watching ships arrive and depart through the transparent curve of the station wall. Some were massive and slow, built for war. Others were small and fast, built for trade or escape. He wondered how many conflicts had been avoided simply because someone had chosen to talk instead of fire. His console chimed. Priority request. MULTI species deadlock. Council oversight required. Evan closed his eyes. Of course it is. The chamber this time was larger than any he had entered before. Representatives from 7 species stood around a central platform. Their body language alone told Evan how bad it was. Defensive postures, dimmed lights, subtle energy fields humming under the surface. This was not a misunderstanding between two sides. This was a system-wide problem. A crystalline delegate spoke first. The Coalition is facing internal fracture. Evan raised an eyebrow. That's dramatic. It is accurate, the delegate replied. Several species questioned the continued role of humans. That made Evan pause. A tall, avian-like representative folded its wings. Your methods are unpredictable. Agreements shift. Outcomes change. Because people change, Evan said. That's normal. It is unacceptable, another delegate said. Stability requires certainty. Evan looked around the chamber. Then why are all of you angry? Silence followed. Catherix stood among them, her posture controlled but alert. She met Evan's eyes briefly. The concern, she said, is that human mediation does not enforce outcomes. It allows evolution. Evan nodded slowly. Yeah, that's the point. That creates fear, the avian delegate said. Some believe humans are reshaping the Coalition. Evan let out a slow breath. We're not reshaping anything. We're just stopping it from breaking. A low rumble of disagreement moved through the chamber. Evan stepped forward. Let me ask you something. Before humans arrived, how many conflicts ended with one side surrendering? Several delegates answered at once. How many ended with resentment? Evan asked. No one answered. That resentment doesn't disappear, Evan said. It just waits. Humans learned that the hard way. A heavy silence settled. You fear loss of control, Evan continued. But control isn't peace. It's just quiet before the next explosion. One delegate shifted uncomfortably. Catherix spoke again. The council requests demonstration. Evan frowned. Demonstration of what? Your method, she said, on a problem with no clear solution. Evan looked around. You already have one. The delegate stiffened. You, Evan said gently. This coalition is scared of change, and change is already happening. He turned slowly, addressing each platform. You built this alliance to avoid destruction. But you did it with rules so rigid they crack under pressure. That rigidity kept us alive, someone said. So did ours, Evan replied. Until it didn't. The chamber grew quiet again. Evan took a step back. You don't need humans to lead, you need us to fail in front of you. Confusion spread. We show you where things bend, Evan said. Where words break, where systems can't adapt, then you decide how to fix them. That is inefficient, the crystalline delegate said. Absolutely, Evan agreed. But it works. The council recessed to deliberate. Evan waited alone in a side chamber, staring at his hands. He felt the weight of more than his own future now. Humanity's place rested on whether the coalition could accept uncertainty. Catherix entered quietly. You risked much, she said. Evan smiled faintly. Story of our species. She stood beside him, looking out at the stars. Some fear that humans will one day manipulate rather than mediate. Evan shook his head. We're not good enough planners for that. That may change, she said. Maybe, Evan replied. But then you'll stop us. That's how trust works. Catherix considered that. The doors opened. The council returned. The insect-like delegate spoke. The coalition has reached a resolution, Evan straightened. Human mediation will continue, the delegate said. But with transparency protocols, all mediated outcomes will be reviewed collectively. Evan nodded. Fair. Additionally, the delegate continued, humans will train other species in adaptive communication. Evan blinked. You want everyone to be a little human. Selective adaptation, Catherix said. Evan laughed softly. Good luck. The decision echoed through the station quickly. Some species resisted, others embraced it. Workshops began. Humans explained concepts like sarcasm, emotional context, and admitting uncertainty. Aliens tried to apply them, often badly. The results were messy, and progress followed. Months passed. Evan found himself less exhausted and more hopeful. Conflicts still happened, but fewer turned violent. Words became tools again, not weapons. One quiet evening, Evan stood once more at the observation hall. Catherix joined him. Your species has changed us, she said. Evan shook his head. We just reminded you that perfection isn't required to survive. She looked at the stars. Humans do not seek dominance. No, Evan said, just understanding. She inclined her head. That may be more powerful. Evan smiled. Humanity had not won the galaxy. It had simply shown it how to keep talking when everything else failed, and that Evan realized might be enough.